Hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and my unboxing and card making using Simon Says Stamps November 2023 card kit. This is part of the monthly subscription. As always, disclaimer, the kits are sent to me. I don't have to do the unboxings, create with things I don't like, etc., etc. I just like doing them. They are fun. And with the monthly kit, you can either just purchase the kit outright, one-time purchase. You can subscribe. If you subscribe, you're not locked in. They invoice you every month, so you choose whether or not you want to get the kit. And things like the coordinating die sets, because usually, you know, there's a big stamp set in the kit. There's usually a coordinating die set because so many people request them. Those are usually separate. And I'm pretty sure this kit has a coordinating die set. I will link to that. I always link to the kit, the options, and then everything individually, because even after the kit sells out, most of the items are available individually, etc. So I think that's everything. We're gonna flip the camera downwards and we're gonna open it up and see what's in it. So let's do that. And now that I'm figuring out how to do this, let's make that a little smaller. I haven't figured out yet how to, you know, do that all in one step, but getting there slowly. So anyway, this is the November card kit. Okay. Woo. So many things. Okay. So we've got alrighty. November 2023 card kit, Cozy Autumn Hugs. And how about we do the stamp set first, the main attraction. So we've got the Cozy Autumn Hugs stamp set. Gorgeous 6x8 set. All these leaf images, and then you layer them up with the little spines and whatnot, and they're all labeled, which I always love. It's kind of obvious with this sort of a set which goes with which, but it's always nice when they're labeled. So, you know, do. And then a bunch of really good sentiments. I like the mix of fonts, autumn greetings, just because, hello friend, etc., etc. Love it. And yeah, there is a coordinating die set for this set. It's just available separately, and I'll have a link to it. So we've got the stamp set, and then there's a 3D embossing folder in here. This is the Wistful Leaves embossing folder. Love it. I love 3D embossing folders. They're so fun. So you get 3D embossing folder. There is also an emboss and cut little folder. This is the Moon and Pines little folder here. So this one, when you run it through, will emboss the pines, and then there is a little like wafer die with a tiny bit of foam like embedded in there. So it will cut at the same time. So you could, you know, create a little shaker, put in a different color piece of cardstock, like cute, right? So there's that. There's a layering stencil set. This is the Autumn Frame stencil set. Love it. And I love that this is, I really like stencil sets that also will, especially when it's like a rectangle pattern like this, it's A2 size. Like the stencils themselves are 6x6, but there's a little grid line in there. And then it's A2 sized. So it's like the perfect size for an A2 card front. So again, it's a layering stencil. Same idea as kind of the stamps. You've got the leaves and then the spines separately. So then you could like mix and match with this and this. Love it. And then, wait, there's more. There's the label tags die set as well. And I like the shape of these. So it's a set of 3. I like the shape, you know, they're very decorative. These will look really nice on card fronts, you know, just with that decorative look to them, but then just as tags to add to little things. Like, I do. I really like the shape of these. So you got 3 nesting tag wafer dies in here as well. There is also a Positively Perfect craft pad. This is foam. I actually think this might come in really handy. Is this one the piercing one? It is too. You also get the Simon Place and Pierce embellishment wand, which is dual-ended. One end has the little sort of sticky end. It's kind of rubbery, so you can use it to pick up little like confetti, etc., place it wherever. And then the other end is a piercing tool. And that comes in really handy if you do want to add actual piercing detail, you know, put your cardstock over this and you can do things like that. This is also going to come in handy with when I've got die cuts, when the dies are kind of stuck inside the wafer die and you want to like poke them out, stick them on top of this so it gives you a little more give. So you get that. Very cool. And then pattern paper. This is American Crafts Farmstead 4x6 patterned paper. There's like foil elements in here. And single-sided. Oh, I like these. Look at those mushrooms. They're so cute. Ooh. Foil. Lurv. Just really pretty pattern paper. Ooh. This is all, there's a lot of pattern papers in here. These are really pretty. I like the color combos. Ooh. That one's foiled as well. Fabulous. So you get pattern paper. And then there's, of course, cardstock. So you get burnt orange, soft navy, and a sheet of Neenah Solar White 110-pound cardstock. Oh, and of course, as always, candy. Can't go wrong with candy. Alrighty. Love it. As always, I'm not sure what I'm like, there's so many things. There's so many things that you can make with this. I'm just like, what am I going to do? I kind of want to use the stencil set. I want to use the stamps. I want to use everything. Love it. Love it. Well, let's go back to this. So, that's the kit in a nutshell. Like I said, I'll have links to everything down below. And then if you keep watching, I will make something. I have no idea. I'm a little overwhelmed. There's a lot of directions one can go with this kit, between the stamp and embossing folder and the little embossing folder and the stencil set and the dies and pattern paper, all the things. I love it. So yeah, I'm gonna take a minute to just think, and then thanks to the magic of video editing, you guys are just gonna see what I make. Alrighty, so I ended up focusing on that little emboss and cut folder, the Moon and Pines one. I was like, I need to play with it. So I took the soft navy cardstock from the kit and I trimmed it down to roughly like 2 3/4 inches square, and cut a couple pieces because, like I generally tend to do, I'm gonna cut and do more than one card since I was gonna do both of them basically the same. So I trimmed down these 2 pieces first, and then for these little embossing folders, because I would call them like standard thickness. Like these are not as thick as like the 3D embossing folders that Simon uses. So these are much thinner, and yeah, to make them work, I used the extended platform, the new one with Spellbinders, because yeah. So it's a platform base A, the B plate, and then I found with this, I prefer having the little shim and then a cutting plate. Like the shim, the folder with the cardstock, and my little cutting plate, and that worked perfectly. So it embosses, it cuts. You're not going to get super deep depth with these because that's just not how they're designed. And I was fine with that. You could leave this as is, but of course I'm going to add some like extra to it. So after I ran these pieces of cardstock through, I pulled out some Simon Hurley Lunar Paste in Gold Rush. And I just put a bit on my work surface, and this was more than I needed. I just grabbed, a little dab of it with my fingers, and then I'm using my fingers to apply it. You could use a little like blending brush or something like that too, or like a blending foam. But for things like this, I use my fingers. It wipes off afterwards. It wipes off my glass mat after, everything's good. The neat thing when you apply it this way, and this applies to most paste really, if you're going to apply it like this, they dry very, very quickly. Like, I'm done. It's done. Like, as I'm doing this, it's dry. It's good to go. You can go on to the next step. So I would just dab my finger lightly into the little blob I had there. Sometimes tap it off a bit so I don't have like a big lump of it on my finger. And then I just rub it over the raised edges. It's not going to be perfect. I'm still going to kind of get it everywhere. I was fine with that. Again, perfection's overrated. But it, grabs onto the embossed areas. And then you get that bit of highlight. It gives it a little bit of a rustic look with the messiness too. And I'm good there. So I did those two pieces, wiped up the mess I made, and then I just grabbed a couple little scraps of I think this is Sunshine cardstock from Simon, and used those scraps and ran them through with that same little Moon and Pines emboss and cut folder so that I could get the little circle size for these backgrounds. So I die cut them first with the little folder. And then I'm going to add a bit of ink blending to these just to get it closer to the color in the pattern paper, because I had it sitting up. You can't see it on screen, but it was kind of sitting above. I'd already sort of picked out the pattern papers I wanted to use. And the one, like the yellow in this pack, is a little bit more muted, a kind of a mustardy color, but a little muted. So to kind of make this coordinate a bit, it doesn't need to be exact, but I didn't want it to just be flat cardstock. So I blended some of Simon's citrine ink around it. That just gave it some depth. And then I kind of toned it back a little bit with Simon's Cappuccino Positively Saturated ink. And this will dry back even more, but it just gives it that little extra something. So then, as is habit lately, I pulled up my little Tim Holtz distresser and thread cutter tool and roughed up the edges of the little blue panels that I had embossed and cut, and then added the lunar paste to. So this just gives, again, more texture, because I love it. Really, if you don't have one of these tools, I recommend them. They're cheap. I don't remember what I paid for this thing. In fact, I can actually look right now because I'm, looking at all my links and things. It's out of stock right now. Crap. But anyway, it's $6.99. It's $7. So yeah, just a nice little tool to have to rough up the edges of the cardstocks. So after I did that to both panels, I trimmed down just scraps of some Neenah Desert Storm, and to be slightly larger than these little panels. And then I adhered them together with some Craft Tacky glue. And again, you could totally step this up, and instead of adhering it directly to the panel, you could pop it up with some, back it with some acetate and then pop it up with some foam tape. And like I mentioned in the intro, you could totally turn this into a little shaker. That would look just adorable. It'd be fabulous. But that wasn't where I was headed. I just took the little circle die cut and I used just thin foam squares. So it pops it up just a bit, not a ton of dimension, just a little bit, just a smidge. So I popped those into place with the little foam squares. And then I've got my pattern paper here that I had chosen, and I trimmed it down. I just trimmed like half an inch off. So these end up being 4 by 5 1/4. And originally I was going to use the little strips of pattern paper on the inside of the card, but then you guys will see I'll end up using those pieces I cut off when I adhere the sentiments. And for the sentiments, I'm using the stamp set that comes in the kit. And I trimmed just a couple more pieces of that soft navy cardstock, pulled out my sentiment, stuck it onto just an acrylic block. This is where the little paw-shaped foam pad comes in handy for those that have been, stamping for a long time, since, before the invention of the stamping and positioning tools that we had. That was the thing, having either a foam pad, a foam mouse pad, that sort of a thing to use with our little acrylic blocks and stamps to get a better impression. It's nice because my work surface is glass, and while that's great and wipes off, sometimes getting a good impression when you're just freehand stamping isn't the greatest. And I was like, ooh, I've got the perfect little solution. So I use the little foam pad there, and I'd use the anti-static powder tool, my anti-static powder tool, on the cardstock. I inked up the stamp with Simon's clear embossing ink, and then stamped or covered those stamped sentiments with Simon's gold embossing powder, melted that with my heat tool. And after I did that, I just took another scrap of that same sunshine cardstock, and I stamped the little friend sentiment from that stamp set. And for that, I used VersaFine Clair Pinecone ink. And then these I fussy cut because I don't have the coordinating wafer dies, but if you had the coordinating wafer dies, you could just die cut it. So I fussy cut that, and then I added those same 2 inks to this as well, just so that, again, it wasn't so bright and would look a little bit weird with that little moon that I have for the background of the moon and trees that I had embossed. So I added that little extra bit of ink blending to those pieces. And then I also trimmed down the burnt orange cardstock in the kit to slightly larger than the pattern paper. So it was like 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, something like that. Just slightly smaller than an A2 card front. And I used that distressing tool again, because once I start, I cannot stop. So I roughed up those edges too, just to give it that little extra bit of texture. And then after I did that, I had decided, and you can see there, that I was like, ooh, those little strips of pattern paper that I cut off, I'm like, those will work perfectly. Just, I can stick them on over that sentiment strip that I had made. So I'm going to glue everything, start gluing everything together. So I'm going to glue on the pattern paper, and then I'm going to glue on the main sentiment strip. And then I decided it needed some baker's twine, just cause. So I pulled out some brown and white baker's twine from my stash, and I'm just going to wrap that around the pattern paper panel here. Once I've got that in place, I'll use my reverse tweezers, of course, to hold that little knot in place so I can fiddle and get this bow the way I want it. And then once I'm happy with it, remove the tweezers, pull the bow tight, trim off the excess. And then I'm going to adhere the little die cut and emboss background. The little friend sentiment, I pop that up with little thin foam squares too, just to give it that little extra something. And then, adhere this to that burnt orange cardstock. So with the roughing up of those edges, it like just nestles right in there. So adhered that with the craft tacky glue, and then popped this little embossed square into place. And then I just repeat the process with the second card front, which I didn't bother filming because it was the exact same thing, just different pattern paper. And then for the inside of the cards, I use my Misty for this just because it was easier, really. My card bases are going to be top folding A2 white note cards. Stuck them in my Misty. I inked up the big Cozy Hugs word, like sentiment from the stamp set. And for that, I used Simon's Royal ink. So it's a nice dark blue ink. And then, again, I love the mix of fonts. This just, there's something about like good font choices that always make me happy. So then I put the Sending You kind of over it on an angle, and then stamped that with the VersaFine Clair Pinecone ink. So that finished off the insides. I kept them just simple. And then I'm going to adhere these card fronts to the card bases also with craft tacky glue. And then once I get these adhered into place, these cards are complete. I didn't add splatter. I didn't add bling. I was kind of sticking mostly to the kit with the exception of some of my scraps of cardstock, the lunar paste, the baker's twine. But yeah, I had fun making these. Stay tuned. I'm going to have probably several more videos coming kind of back to back using elements from this kit, because the ideas are rolling, and so many fun things. But like I mentioned in the intro, I will have a link below the video. I'll link to the kit and all the supplies I used, etc., etc. I will also, as always, have a link to my blog post. And in the blog post, I have picture links to all the supplies. I also have all the pictures, etc. That will be linked directly below the video in the description box if anyone's interested. And thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch my videos. I really appreciate it. And I love it when you guys leave comments, thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.